Rain punished the hospital parking lot in hard silver sheets. Nia Brooks stepped through the sliding doors in wrinkled navy scrubs, her sneakers soaked, her body running on nothing but caffeine and duty. 12 hours, 2 emergency intubations, 1 child she could not stop thinking about. All she wanted was a quiet ride home and 10 minutes where no one needed her. A black SUV waited under the flickering pickup light, sleek and still. Nia lowered her head against the storm and moved toward it fast, too tired to notice that this was not the kind of vehicle ordinary people left running unattended. Hey everyone, welcome back. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'm reading every single one. And don't forget to hit subscribe and like this video. Your support means the world and helps me bring you more stories that pull you right in. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Okay, let's get into it. The rain came down, turning the hospital driveway into a river of brake lights and spray. Nia had one hand over her hair, the other gripping her tote, and her mind was still inside room 406 with the little boy whose fever had finally broken 10 minutes before shift change. She was so tired that the black SUV idling at the curb looked less like a machine and more like mercy. Her phone buzzed. The rideshare app showed a dark vehicle at the entrance. Same size, same color, same place. Good enough. She yanked open the rear door and slid inside. Heat wrapped around her instantly. It smelled like cedar, leather, and money. She let out a breath she had been carrying since dawn before the silence registered as wrong. No radio, no driver asking for her name. Just leather, smoked glass, and the soft hum of a machine built to keep the world outside where it belonged. Nia opened her eyes. A partition separated the front from the rear cabin. Her stomach dropped. This was not her ride. As if the car had sensed her thought, the glass slid down with a whisper. The man seated across from her did not move quickly. He did not need to. He sat in a dark coat, one ankle over the opposite knee, one hand resting against his thigh as though every inch of the vehicle obeyed his breathing. His face was all still lines. No anger, no surprise. That made it worse. Something about him felt dangerous, controlled, unmistakable. He was not loud. He was final. Nia's hand flew to the door handle. Locked. Oh my God, she breathed. I am so sorry. I thought this was my car. I can get out right now. The driver half turned in his seat, one hand near his jacket. Sorry. That single word changed everything. The man's gaze stayed on Nia, calm, measuring. Did she threaten anyone? No, sir. Did she attempt to steal anything? No, sir. Only then did his eyes flick to the badge clipped to her scrub top. NIABROOKS, RN. Nurse, he said softly. Nia swallowed, yes, and very embarrassed. For the first time, a shadow of expression touched his mouth. Not a smile, something closer to interest. Unlock the door. The lock snapped open. Relief rushed through her. She grabbed the handle, but before she could push it open, a flash of movement caught her eye through the rain-streaked windshield. A delivery truck was coming too fast down the slick intersection ahead. Its rear wheels shuddered. Its body swayed once, then twice. Nia leaned forward. Back up. The driver frowned. What? Back up now. He hesitated, and the truck's trailer fishtailed sideways. Move, Nia shouted. The driver slammed the SUV into reverse just as the truck jackknifed across the lane in front of them. Metal screamed. A compact car 2 lengths ahead took the impact and spun into a light pole. Glass burst across the road. The SUV rocked hard. Nia was thrown sideways. Her palm hit the chest of the man beside her to brace herself, and for one shocked instant she felt the steady thud of his heartbeat. Then the screaming started outside. A woman, high, frantic, raw. Nia jerked back, breathing like a nurse hearing the sound that meant someone had seconds, not minutes. Through the shattered rear window of the compact car, A child's car seat was visible. Nia reached for the door. The driver caught her wrist. Absolutely not. There's a child in that car. It could explode. It could also bleed out. The driver looked toward the man in the back seat, waiting. The man's face had changed. The stillness in him was no longer passive. It had become command. "You should wait for emergency services," he said. Nia stared at him. Rain hammered the roof between them like a countdown. That child does not have time for an organized response. Outside, people gathered under awnings and storefronts, phones raised, safe and useless. No one moved toward the wreck. Nia looked back at the crushed car, then at the stranger beside her. "I'm going," she said. She opened the door and jumped into the storm. Cold water soaked her sneakers instantly. She ran through rain and broken glass toward the smoking sedan, hearing footsteps behind her before she even reached it. He had followed. By the time she reached the driver's side, the billionaire was beside her in the downpour, coat plastered to his frame. In the front seat, the mother was pinned and dazed, blood running down one temple. In the back, the little boy was choking on sobs. Nia's voice turned steady as steel. "You hold the frame, I get the child." The man looked at her, really looked at her, and obeyed. Rain sheeted down over the wreck, turning shattered glass into glittering teeth beneath the streetlights. Nia's knees hit the wet pavement beside the compact car as she reached through the broken rear window. The little boy inside was twisted sideways in his car seat, sobbing in short, choking bursts that told her he was frightened enough to stop thinking clearly. In the front seat, his mother was pinned, blood streaming from her temple, her breath coming in broken gasps. "It's okay," Nia said, though the night around them was pure chaos. "Look at me, baby, just keep looking at me." The child's eyes locked on hers. Beside her, the billionaire braced one hand against the warped frame of the car, the other on the roof, holding the crushed metal steady while rain ran down his face and collar. Up close, he looked even more dangerous than he had in the SUV. Not because of anger, because of control. Men were shouting, horns were blaring, people were filming from the sidewalk, but nothing in him scattered. He seemed built for storms. "Tell me what you need," he said. Nia looked up at him sharply. That was the first thing that caught in her chest. Men like him usually told other people what they needed. They did not ask. "Keep the frame from shifting," she said. "If it drops, the glass comes down on him." He tightened his grip without another word. Nia reached inside and fought the jammed buckle on the child's harness. Her fingers were slick with rain and blood. The clasp would not move. The little boy cried harder. His mother made a broken sound from the front seat, trying to twist around toward him. "Nia." She looked up. The man held out a slim metal tool from somewhere inside his coat. His eyes found hers immediately and stayed there. "Will this help?" She took it, yes. The buckle snapped free. The boy lunged forward and Nia pulled him carefully through the broken window, one arm supporting his neck, the other wrapping him close against her chest. He was shaking so hard his tiny fingers clawed at her shoulder. She checked him quickly by instinct. Airway, pupils, visible bleeding, response. Frightened, bruised, alive. "Good job," she whispered. "You did so good." Without thinking, she turned and passed the child toward the billionaire. He took him with astonishing care. It should have looked strange, maybe even absurd. A soaked man in a black coat, face cut from sharp silence, standing in the middle of a wrecked street with a terrified little boy clutching his lapels. But the child quieted almost immediately, face pressed into his neck. The crowd saw it. Nia felt the shift before she fully understood it. The people on the sidewalk were no longer just staring at the accident. They were staring at him. And then, because of the way he had stepped into her command without resistance, they were staring at her too. "Mother next," Nia said, already moving. Two more black SUVs had appeared at the curb. Men in dark jackets spilled out into the rain, scanning the street, moving with disciplined urgency. Security, real security, the kind that did not ask questions twice. One of them hurried forward with an umbrella, but the billionaire ignored it. Another stepped toward Nia as if to redirect her away from the car. "She goes where she needs to go," the billionaire said. His voice was low, but every man around him obeyed instantly. The space opened. Nia froze for half a heartbeat, just long enough to feel the full force of it. Those men were not moving because she had authority in their world. They were moving because he had given it to her. Recognition sparked hot and disorienting through her chest. Not attraction, not yet. Something deeper, more dangerous. She leaned into the driver's side window. "Ma'am, listen to me. Your son is safe. I need you to keep your head still." The woman's eyes fluttered toward the billionaire holding her child. Even through pain and shock, a flicker of stunned recognition crossed her face. She knew who he was, or knew enough. Nia filed it away and kept working. "Seatbelt cutter," she said. A gloved hand placed one into hers before the last word finished leaving her mouth. Him again. She cut the belt, stabilized the woman's neck, and gave quick instructions to the nearest guards. "On my count." One hand under her shoulders, one at the hips. Slow, no twisting. No one challenged her. No one asked if she was sure. No one reminded her she was only a nurse. Because he had already answered the question of whether she mattered here. The woman cried out as they lifted her free. Nia walked with them toward the curb until the first ambulance siren split the rain-heavy air. Red lights washed over the street in violent pulses. The scene exploded with motion. Paramedics, police, shouted questions, radios crackling. Only then did the adrenaline inside her begin to tremble loose. Her hands started shaking. Nia turned slightly away and flexed her fingers once, furious with the weakness. She hated being seen in the moment after the work was done, when the body remembered fear. But when she lifted her head, he was already walking toward her. He stopped directly in front of her. For a second, all the noise around them seemed to recede. The rain, the crowd, the flashing lights, even the security detail blurred into the edges. He reached for her hand. Nia's breath caught. He turned her palm upward, studying the thin cuts the glass had left across her skin. Then he removed one black leather glove and slid it carefully over her wounded hand, shielding it from the rain. The gesture was small, loaded, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with deliberate care. A ripple passed through the people watching. Whispers rose at once. But Nia barely heard any of it. Because for the first time in a very long time, someone powerful had looked at her, really looked at her, and seen more than a tired black nurse in wet scrubs. He had seen the steadiness in her, the precision, the refusal to freeze when everyone else did. "You didn't run," he said. His voice was low, rough, unapologetic. "No," she answered. "Most people would have." She glanced toward the wreck, toward the mother now on the stretcher, toward the child clinging to the man's driver. People die when everyone waits for someone else. Something in his expression shifted then, not softer, sharper, as if her answer had landed somewhere private. "What is your full name?" he asked. "Nia Brooks." He repeated it slowly, like a fact he intended to remember. "Nia Brooks." Then his hand settled lightly at the small of her back, not possessive, not hesitant, but certain, and guided her beneath the shelter of the umbrella his men still held waiting. The crowd reacted exactly as crowds always did when power broke its own rules. Phones lifted higher. Questions moved like sparks. Faces turned openly. Who was she? Why was he standing with her? What had he seen? Nia felt every stare. Her oldest instinct rose at once. Step away, apologize, disappear before the attention became dangerous. His hand pressed once, just enough. "Stay." He did not say it aloud. He did not need to. And standing there in the rain-washed glare of ambulance lights, with his hand steady at her back and the whole street watching, Nia realized something that unsettled her more than the crash itself. She was no longer invisible. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the red lights washed over the rain-slick street in broken flashes. Nia stood beneath the umbrella one of his men held over her, chest still heaving from the rescue, trying to steady herself against the impossible weight of the night. Then the atmosphere changed. Not louder. Tighter. His security team shifted first, their shoulders locked, eyes scanned. Hands moved subtly toward jackets and earpieces. The kind of men who had looked calm a second ago now looked sharpened by threat. The billionaire felt it too. His hand, still at the small of Nia's back, moved her half a step behind him. That was when the black motorcycle glided through the line of stopped traffic. It came slowly, almost lazily, as if whoever rode it had no fear of armed men, police lights, or being seen. Rain streamed off the helmet and dark frame as the bike rolled to a stop near the curb. The rider dismounted, pulled off the helmet, and revealed a man with a scar through one eyebrow and a smile so smooth it felt rehearsed. He looked first at the billionaire, then at Nia. "Well," he said softly, "this is unexpected." Every guard around them stiffened. The man beside Nia did not turn fully, but his voice dropped into something cold enough to quiet the rain in her mind. "You should not be here, Gabriel." Gabriel. The name stayed in the air like a threat that had already introduced itself. Gabriel spread his hands. "I came to see if the whispers were true. You survive a staged collision, walk into the storm yourself, and end the night protecting a nurse." His gaze settled on Nia again. "You are becoming reckless." Nia's pulse stumbled. She looked from Gabriel to the billionaire. Staged. Neither man answered fast enough. That was answer enough. Her eyes went to the wrecked sedan, the truck, the shattered glass still scattered across the lane. Her stomach turned. That was not an accident. The billionaire's jaw tightened. Gabriel smiled wider. No one told her. Nia stepped away from the hand at her back. "You knew." His eyes moved to her instantly, not until it started. "But you're not surprised." A beat of silence. That silence hurt more than words would have. Gabriel laughed under his breath. "There it is. The moment the illusion collapses." He tilted his head at Nia. "You really do not know who you stepped into that vehicle with." "Gabriel," the billionaire said low and final, "leave." But Gabriel had already found the crack and pushed deeper. "You saved his life tonight," he told Nia. "That makes you important. Important people around him tend to become targets." Nia felt the chill all the way down her spine. "Who are you?" she asked the billionaire. His gaze held hers. "Not here." The answer hit like betrayal. Nia gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "That is convenient. This is not the place." "No," she said, taking another step back. "The place was the SUV. Or maybe the scene where your guards started moving like this was a battlefield, and I was the only person who did not get the briefing." Something flickered in his face then. Regret maybe, frustration, whatever it was, it came too late. Gabriel watched her with open satisfaction. Secrets always work the same way. At first they make a woman feel chosen, then they make her feel trapped. "One more word," the billionaire said. Gabriel ignored him. "You should leave now, nurse, before his world decides what to do with you." Nia's throat tightened. She hated that Gabriel could see her fear, hated more that he might be right. Police were being quietly redirected. Witnesses were being moved back. Even the paramedics seemed to hit invisible boundaries around this man's influence. Nia felt it all at once, the scale of the machine she had wandered into. This was not just wealth. This was control. The kind of control that bent streets, people, and consequences. Gabriel stepped backward toward his bike. "Your enemies will move faster now," he said to the billionaire, "especially if they think she matters." The billionaire's expression hardened. "Get out of here." Gabriel put the helmet back on. "You should keep her close." His eyes flicked once more to Nia, or very far away. Then he rode off into the rain. For one long second, nobody moved. The city slowly returned in broken pieces. Sirens, engines, radios, rain. Nia turned back to the man beside her. "Tell me now." He looked at her with an intensity that only made her angrier. "My name is Adrian Vale," he said, "and there are people who use violence to reach me." She folded her arms tightly across herself. "That is not enough." "No," he said quietly, "it is." "Then give me the rest." His eyes flicked once toward the dark street Gabriel had disappeared into, then back to her. "If I tell you everything here, you become part of this whether you want to or not." Her laugh was sharp this time. "You think I am not already?" That landed. He stepped closer but did not touch her. "Come with my security team tonight," Adrian said. "Let me keep you safe until morning." "Safe from what?" He did not answer quickly enough. A crack split the air. Glass burst from the hospital parking structure across the street. One of his guards shouted, "Down." Adrian moved on instinct. He caught Nia around the waist and drove her behind the ambulance just as a second crack tore through the storm. Harder, unmistakable. Gunfire. Nia hit the wet pavement with Adrian shielding her. His body braced over hers as security shouted and drew weapons around them. Her cheek pressed to the rain-cold asphalt. Her heart slammed against her ribs. And in that terrifying instant, Nia understood the complication in full. Walking away from Adrian Vale was no longer simple. Because someone had already decided she belonged inside his war. By the time the gunfire stopped, the rain had turned the hospital loading bay into a war zone of flashing lights and shouted commands. Nia lay on the pavement for one stunned second after Adrian rolled off her. Her ears rang. Her palms burned from the asphalt. Around them, security men fanned outward with weapons drawn, using the ambulance and parked cars as cover while police screamed for civilians to get back. "Are you hit?" Adrian asked. His hand was already at her shoulder, checking, searching. "No." The word came out thin. A guard rushed toward Adrian. "We lost visual on the shooter." Another said, "Secondary team is sweeping the garage." And just like that, Adrian's world closed around him again. Layers of men, orders, movement, danger. Nia was suddenly outside it, standing in wet scrubs with glass cuts on her hands, trying to understand how her shift had turned into this. Adrian looked at her. "You're coming with my team." It was not cruel, it was not careless. But it was still an order. Nia took a step back. "No." His expression sharpened. "Nia." "I said no." Rain slid down her face as she held his gaze. Part of her knew he was trying to protect her. Another part, the older part, the one built from years of being spoken over, handled, redirected, rose up hard and angry. "I did not choose this," she said. "I did not choose your enemies, your guards, your bullets, or your secrets. You do not get to decide for me now." Something shifted in his face. Not anger, pain maybe, respect forced through urgency. Before he could answer, a police officer pushed through the line of guards. "Ma'am, we need a statement, now." Adrian's jaw tightened. "She gives no statement without counsel." The officer looked at him, recognized him, then looked at Nia with visible suspicion. She was at the center of the collision and the shooting. That makes her a witness. "No," one of Adrian's guards muttered. "It makes her exposed." The officer ignored him. "Ma'am." Nia looked from the officer to Adrian. There it was, the split in the road. One path led deeper into Adrian Vale's protected world, where every choice would be filtered through men with earpieces and guns. The other led into the cold, bright machinery of official procedure, where people like her got questioned harder and protected less. Neither felt safe. But one of them was hers. "I'll talk," she said. Adrian stepped toward her. "Nia, listen to me carefully. This is no longer random. Nothing about tonight was random. Then don't walk away from the only protection you have." The truth in his voice made her hesitate. That was what frightened her most. Not the guards, not the bullets, not even Gabriel. The fact that part of her wanted to trust him, wanted to step under his protection, and let someone dangerous decide that she mattered enough to shield. But wanting that felt too much like surrender. "I have spent my whole life making sure I can stand on my own feet," she said quietly. "I am not starting over on my knees just because your world found me." His eyes darkened. "That is not what I'm asking." "Maybe not, but it is what it would become." The officer cleared his throat impatiently. "Ma'am." Nia turned away before Adrian could answer. Inside the hospital, the hallways felt wrong. Too bright, too normal. Nurses moved past with clipboards. A janitor pushed a mop bucket across tile already wet from tracked in rain. Somewhere a monitor beeped steadily. It was the same building she had walked out of 20 minutes ago, and yet it no longer fit around her life. The officer led her into a narrow consultation room off the emergency corridor. A metal table, 2 plastic chairs, fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired and guilty. "Name," he said, opening a notebook. "Nia Brooks." He wrote it down, then looked up. "Relationship to Adrian Vale." Nia stared at him. "None." His pen paused. That tiny pause humiliated her more than she expected. He already thought he knew the story. Everyone would. The woman in scrubs, the billionaire, the bullets. By morning, if this spread, she would become a headline version of herself, reduced, rearranged. "Walk me through everything," he said. So she did. The wrong SUV, the crash, the child, Gabriel, the warning, the gunfire. When she finished, the officer leaned back. "And you expect me to believe you just happened to get into his car tonight?" There it was. Not concern, not protection. Suspicion. Nia felt something in her chest go cold and clear. "Yes," she said. He tapped the notebook. "You understand how this looks." She thought of Adrian outside in the storm, surrounded by men who would move cities for him. She thought of herself in this ugly little room with wet shoes and blood on her sleeve, being asked to defend the accident that had almost killed her. This was the dark night of it. Not just danger. Isolation. The old script trying to force itself back into place. Be quiet, be small, accept that powerful people shape the story and women like you get questioned inside it. The officer pushed harder. "Did Mr. Vale contact you before tonight?" "No." "Have you received money, gifts, favors?" "No." "Did he ask you to say any of this?" Nia looked at the easy lie, the safe silence, the simpler version of events that would let her leave this room faster. Then she thought of the child in the car seat, the mother bleeding, Gabriel smiling, Adrian telling her too little but not lying when it would have been easier. And she understood something with sudden certainty. Staying small would not save her. It never had. Nia sat straighter. Her voice came out steady enough to change the air. "No," she said. "And if you are trying to suggest I was part of this, say it clearly so I can answer it clearly." The officer blinked. "I entered the wrong SUV by mistake. I helped save 2 lives. Someone opened fire. And whatever game powerful men are playing tonight, I am not your convenient suspect." The room went still. Outside the frosted glass door, footsteps stopped. Someone had heard her. Someone was listening. Nia walked back into the emergency corridor like she was walking back into every room that had ever taught her to shrink. Same fluorescent lights, same polished floors, same nurses' station where doctors spoke over aides and patients stared past staff in scrubs as though only certain uniforms counted. 2 hours ago, she had moved through this hallway like background noise, tired, invisible, easy to overlook. Not now. Wet hair loose at her shoulders, one hand still covered by Adrian's black glove, blood dried dark on her sleeve. Her chin was higher than it had been when she left. She did not hurry. She did not apologize for existing in the center of the corridor. People noticed. A triage nurse paused mid-sentence. A security guard near the elevator straightened. 2 detectives standing by the desk turned at the exact same moment. At the far end of the hall, Adrian Vale stood with 3 of his men and looked like a man made of stillness and danger. Nia kept walking until every eye in the corridor was on her. Then she stopped in front of the detectives and placed a hospital visitor sticker on the counter. It meant nothing to anyone else. To her, it was proof. "I know who opened the parking structure access," she said. The corridor changed. One detective frowned. "What?" Nia pointed to the sticker. "This was stuck to the sole of my shoe after the shooting. Garage-level access. Maintenance entry only. I recognized the color code because our hospital changed contractor badges last month. Public visitors don't get this color. Emergency staff don't either. Temporary maintenance workers do." The younger detective stepped closer. Nia kept going, her voice steady. "In the consultation room, while you were asking whether I had some secret connection to Adrian Vale, I noticed something else. The man on the motorcycle, Gabriel, never looked confused when the shot came from the garage. He looked satisfied, like the second part of the plan had arrived on time." Adrian did not move, but she felt his attention lock onto her fully. "The shooter didn't improvise," Nia said. "He was already in position. Which means somebody got him into the structure before the lockdown. And if Gabriel's man came in wearing maintenance gear, he used an active contractor badge." The older detective stared at her. "How would you know that?" "Because I work here," Nia said, sharper now. "I pay attention, that's my job, that's how people stay alive." Silence. Then Adrian reached into his coat and placed a small black device beside the sticker on the counter. "Tracking relay," he said, "recovered from the truck after the collision." The younger detective looked between the relay and Nia's sticker, and his face changed. The room could feel the pieces locking together. Nia turned toward Adrian then, and her next words were not soft. "You should have told me the truth sooner, but I am telling it now." That landed harder than shouting. The nurse's station went still. A metal instrument tray somewhere down the hall gave a tiny rattling clink, then nothing. Nia faced the detectives again. The crash was staged. Gabriel appeared too fast afterward. The shooter had building access. Check the maintenance logs, cross-match temporary badge pulls, and pull West Garage camera feeds from 19 minutes before the first shot. If I'm wrong in public. But I'm not. The younger detective was already moving. The older one spoke into his radio. Around them, the corridor held its breath. That was the moment Blueprint B always needed. Not noise, not chaos. Truth spoken so cleanly that the whole room had no choice but to stop and listen. One of Adrian's guards touched his earpiece. His expression hardened. Garage footage confirmed. One male, maintenance jacket. He ditched the cap at the stairwell. The older detective looked up sharply. "Get me that still now." Another beat. Then the younger detective's phone buzzed. He looked down and all the color left his face. "We have him," he said. No one cheered. No one moved. It was quieter than celebration, more devastating. Gabriel had not been caught in some dramatic chase. He had been exposed, publicly, methodically, by the woman he thought was leverage. The older detective turned to Nia, his tone altered now, respect replacing suspicion. "Ms. Brooks, you were right." Nia held his gaze. "I know." Then Adrian moved. He crossed the small space between them and stopped directly in front of her. For one suspended second, he said nothing at all. He just looked at her like the corridor had disappeared, like the police and nurses and guards were only witnesses to something he was only now fully allowing himself to see. He took off his coat. Slowly, deliberately, he placed it over her shoulders. Not because she looked cold, because everyone watching would understand exactly what it meant. A billionaire who ruled by control had just broken his own world's rules in the plainest way possible, not with a kiss, not with a speech, with a quiet gesture of public claim and protection. The corridor felt the meaning at once. No one spoke. Even the radios seemed farther away. Adrian's hand lingered briefly at her shoulder, grounding, careful, unmistakable. His voice, when it came, was low enough to be intimate and clear enough for the room to hear. "You walked back in," he said. Nia swallowed, "Yes." When everyone else would have run. A faint tremor moved through her, not from fear this time. "I'm tired of running." Something in his expression gave way then, not weakness, but recognition so complete it altered the air between them. "Good," Adrian said, "because I see you now." And in the absolute silence of that hospital corridor, with his coat wrapped around her shoulders and the whole room watching, Nia believed him. 3 weeks later, the hospital's front entrance glowed gold beneath the evening lights. On the night everything changed, Nia had stood outside these same doors soaked to the skin, shoulders folded inward, wanting nothing but silence and a ride home. She had entered the wrong SUV with her head down, trying to make herself small enough to survive one more brutal shift. That was who she had been in the old world, useful, exhausted, and easy to overlook. The kind of woman people trusted with their lives but rarely with their attention. Tonight she came through the front doors on purpose. Not in wrinkled scrubs, not with rain in her lashes and blood on her sleeve. In deep red. The color should have felt too bold on her. Instead, it felt exact. The hospital foundation gala filled the atrium beyond the glass with light, music, and the soft thrum of expensive conversation. Donors drifted beneath chandeliers. Board members clustered near the silent auction tables. Doctors who had barely nodded at her in the hallway now turned the moment she entered. Nia felt it at once. The shift. Heads lifting, voices lowering, eyes following. Not because she was overdressed, not because she looked unfamiliar. Because she was expected. A woman at the registration table smiled instantly. "Ms. Brooks, they're waiting for you." They? 3 weeks ago, she would have assumed that meant someone more important had arrived behind her. Now she just nodded. She walked forward with her shoulders back, each step clean and unhurried. The old instinct to hug the wall, to move around the edges of a room and leave space for richer, louder people, rose for one reflexive second. Then it fell away. At the center of the atrium, a long table sat raised on a low platform for the evening's keynote guests, hospital executives, foundation trustees, city officials, and one empty chair at the right hand of Adrian Vale. That was the status marker, specific, visual, impossible to misunderstand. Conversation rippled as she approached. Adrian was already standing. He wore black again, of course, tailored, controlled, severe enough that softer men might have disappeared beside him. But the moment he saw her, something in his face changed with that same dangerous stillness she had come to understand. Not softened, focused, as if the room itself had just become background. Around him sat people who once would have been unthinkable company for her. The hospital director, 2 trustees, the mayor's chief of staff, and Adrian's mother, Elena Vale, whose name moved through business magazines like Weather Systems. Nia slowed only slightly. Then Adrian did the thing no one in that room expected. He stepped away from his own chair, crossed the space between them, and pulled out the one beside his. For her. Not with flourish, not like a performance, with the quiet finality of a man rearranging the rules of his own world in public and expecting everyone else to catch up. The atrium went almost silent. It was not the shocked silence of scandal this time. It was recognition. Nia felt every eye on her as Adrian held the chair and waited. 3 weeks ago, she would have panicked under that kind of attention. She would have wondered if she was being mocked, tested, displayed. Now she understood what the room was really witnessing. Not rescue. Arrival. She took her seat. Adrian sat only after she had. His mother watched the exchange with unreadable elegance for a beat, then lifted her glass toward Nia in a small, deliberate salute. Across the platform, the hospital director cleared his throat and smiled nervously into the microphone. "Tonight," he said, "we are also announcing the creation of the Brooks Emergency Response Scholarship, established for nurses whose judgment under pressure has already saved lives." Nia's breath caught. A screen behind the stage lit with her name. Not attached to gossip, not attached to suspicion, not as a footnote in someone else's crisis. Her name alone. The applause started slowly, then spread. Real applause, warm public earned. Nia turned her head and looked at Adrian. He didn't clap at first. He just watched her like he wanted her to have the full force of the moment before he joined it. Then, with a small nod that felt almost private despite the room, he began too. Later, when the speeches ended and the crowd loosened into music and glasses and candlelight, they stepped out onto the hospital terrace overlooking the city. The night was dry. That mattered more than she expected. No rain, no panic, no accidental entry into someone else's life. Just the skyline spread in gold and black, and Adrian standing beside her with his hands in his pockets like a man who had learned, finally, that not every important thing needed to be controlled to be kept. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Adrian reached into his coat and placed a small, silver access card in her hand. Not a hospital badge. Not a security credential. A key to his private foundation office. A place at the table, concrete, visual, permanent. Nia turned it over between her fingers. That's a dangerous gift. His mouth curved barely, only if you use it. She looked up at him, and if I do. Then you stop entering the wrong door by accident. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The sound seemed to please him more than applause had. She slid the key into her clutch and stepped closer, just enough for the city wind to move between them. "You see me now?" she asked. Adrian's eyes held hers, steady, certain. "I did the night you ran toward the wreck." Nia swallowed. "And now?" He lifted one hand, and, with the gentleness of something once impossible becoming natural, brushed a loose strand of hair back from her face. "Now," he said, "everyone else does too." Then they walked back inside together through the front doors, not as a mistake, not as a scandal, but as the new world they had already chosen. Thanks so much for listening to Nia's journey tonight. If this story moved you, hit like, leave your thoughts below. I want to hear what you think of Nia's choices, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Until then, take care of yourselves and remember, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to step forward, but that's where the real strength begins.